You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello out there in podcast and YouTube land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, where we talk about horror movies and science fiction films and those key elements that lift them above the average genre fare. If you are joining us for the first time, we would like to welcome you. We're not sure where you found us, but we're glad you did. And I hope it's more than just some creepy crawly little thing that was under a rock. But if you're returning, we're even happier because somehow you have latched on to our insanity and are coming with us for the ride. My name is Tim, and my co-host and friend David Horton here is with me. Hello, David.
Hello. How are you?
I am good. I keep experimenting with our openings, and I'm not sure if it's working.
Well, I like it being a little bit kind of impromptu or improv sort of thing. So that works.
Creepy crawlies.
I mean, you know, we say it a lot on the podcast, but I like the fact that we're unscripted and everything doesn't sound like we're reading it or sounds like the same every week. I mean, for me, listening to podcasts as much as I've started, it's, I guess in a way, sometimes it's comforting because they fall into the same shtick and you're listening to them do the same advertising or the same intro or the same whatever. But it usually annoys me because I'm going, okay, and I know you're going to say this now. Oh, and you're going to say this now. And you're going to say this now because that's what you always say every week and yada, yada, you know. So I like, break it up, man. Make it different.
I agree. I mean, I haven't listened to a Ross Matthews podcast in a good 5 years, but I can still tell you he's talking about Squarespace. He talks about Squarespace constantly on that show, and I'm like, no more.
Right. The only thing genre-wise I've been doing is I'm still trying in spare moments or hours, so to speak, to catch up on my Babylon 5 rewatch, because still one of the greatest series ever made. We should do like a little pseudo podcast of it, but you'd have to watch 5 years of it, which I don't think you've seen.
Yeah, I don't listen to the Johnny Has the Keys podcast because David's always talking about Babylon 5 and Straczynski and Ellison and all that.
Yeah, we don't listen to that crap. But I'm rewatching again because they're doing a reboot, remake, redo, whatever.
Oh yeah, you've been talking about it.
And so yeah, I want to continue the watch. So I'm halfway through season 1 and still loving it and still just amazed that was ever made when it was made and did what it did.
What is it on?
Well, right now it's on HBO. HBO has redone all of the. They've kind of remastered it, like Star Trek original series was done. So all of these effects, which at the time were done with Amiga computers, like 75 of them trying to do CGI. It was the first series to ever do CGI for space battles, long before Next Generation or Babylon or Battlestar Galactica or anything else did. And they've remastered that all. HBO essentially, I guess, has bought it, or maybe Warner's. Doesn't Warner's own HBO? I think they do.
Does Warner own DC Comics? Because all the DC stuff seems to be locked into HBO too.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that's it. Warner owns HBO, and so that's why they have now remastered it all, and it looks great. It still just it looks really good. I liked the effects to begin with. I didn't mind them, but they were recorded in such poor quality that even my DVDs of it look like it's kind of through through
Next Generation.
No, because that kind of looks pixelated. This is more gauzy, like you've got a filter in front of the camera, even in the non-CG scenes. Just the reproduction of those DVDs was not good when it was originally done, because that show was so shoestring budget the entire time, and we didn't know if we're going to be canceled every year to year, that sort of thing. So, I mean, it switched networks 3 times.
Wow.
So, yeah.
But those aren't networks. It was CW and all those, right?
Yeah, UPN, TNT, CW. So yes, yeah, okay. Not really networks, but I guess broadcast affiliates, or
subsidiaries. I don't know.
Syndication. Yeah. So
yeah. Even
anyway,
if they were networks, I would not consider them networks.
No. Although most streaming services are now networks, essentially.
That's true.
Because they're all producing their own content. So
Right.
they're essentially the new networks. What have you been doing? Something new, and you watched something weird with a title that I've never heard of.
No, you've heard of it, and you probably are biased. I have been venturing into a lot of documentaries and docuseries here lately. And I have, there's actually 3 seasons of this now, but I have only seen 2 because I watch it on Shudder and they only have access to 2 yet. So far, the last series came out in October, and it is Eli Roth's History of Horror.
Yeah, you're right. I'm biased.
Granted, he covers a lot of stuff that we might not like, but I don't have a problem with that because he's giving full spectrum of horror. So yeah, he's going to include a Rob Zombie movie in there or something, because at one point it was on the blip of pop culture radar. Season 1 was zombies, slashers, part 1 and 2, demons, killer creatures, vampires. But season 2, he started getting a little more specific. One was called Houses of Hell. One's called Monsters. One's called Body Horror. You'll love that one. Witches and Chilling Children. And then one's just 9 Nightmares. And these are 9 movies that really defy categorization, which I found fascinating.
Huh. Okay.
And then I have not seen, like I said, season 3, but it looks like the first one's called Sequels That Don't Suck. That's great. Infections, Psychics, Apocalyptic Horror, Holiday Horror, and Mad Scientists. So I like the way he is breaking these things down into not necessarily, I mean, he could easily do a season of just directors, George Romero, John Carpenter, what have you, Rob Zombie. I think I texted you a few times while I was watching this a few weeks back. I really like the interviews he does. I like the topics he does. I especially like the selections he picks. And it's probably because it's very similar to us. Like, I was watching this second season and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, all these movies are movies we've covered this season or last season. He talked about The Brood and other things that we have covered. And I mean, I guess there's obviously going to be some crossover because we're halfway into that world, since the other half of our podcast is science fiction. But anyway, I just, I like it. And he's got tons of interviews with people. Some he like reuses from recordings he may have done first season. But I mean, there's people on there like Stephen King and David Cronenberg, or your friend Greg Nicotero, those guys also commenting on movies that influence them as well.
So is he basically like, I'm the host, like a Rod Serling documentary kind of thing, and he's just talking through it and showing clips?
The first season, I seem to remember him being more present with like a guest in scenes, but now he's more narrating, and it's better. So like, you definitely recognize his voice in, I don't know, the opening, and every once in a while he'll say, and then David Cronenberg's The Brood, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So, but no, you're not seeing him as much. But like, he will bring up his movies, which I don't blame him. I mean, he wants to promote them. So far, the only 2 I recall of his that I've seen mentioned were Green Inferno, and that's because he was talking about Cannibal Holocaust and how it inspired him. And then in Body Horror, he talks about cabin fever because of the weird parasite, flesh-eating bacteria or whatever.
I remember stumbling across something, scrolling through or doing research, whatever, and it was Eli Roth, Rob Zombie, and Greg Nicotero all sitting around a table talking. I'm not sure if it was, we're talking about Walking Dead or, whatever, but they were. Is that part of this?
It is. It's from the first season.
Okay.
of this. Like I said, I
You
think
know,
it's gotten
and
better. There's a less of that and more of the actual films with narration.
okay. Well, I may give it a watch. I mean, I love the structure like you're talking about, and like you've texted me a couple of times, and I like any kind of retroactive kind of look back and investigate and collate and all of that, which is what we do, like you said.
hmm
And it's not that I don't think Eli might be a good host. I think he's been a lucky individual
hmm
because I don't think that he really has the talent to be in the league of these people that he's in contact with. I mean, even Nicotero. I don't think Eli Roth is a good a director and or as good a filmmaker as even Rob Zombie. I think Zombie has better lens usage and better lighting and all that than I've seen in anything I've seen with Eli. But that's just
Interesting.
me.
I would agree with you probably. I don't remember his movies, so that says a lot right there. I see, again, a lot of success today is equated with stuff in pop culture. You know, the Housewives of whatever hell that Andy Cohen has produced on Bravo is numero uno amongst pop culture, and yet we know it's
Yeah.
shit and would bore the hell out of us. So I kind of see him fitting in that way. Maybe, I don't know. I do appreciate his knowledge, and you know what? It's probably not his knowledge. It could be the guy producing and writing it, and he's just the face. Because the guy that's
Correct.
producing this, and I did look his name up, I forgot to put it in my notes. He knows his shit, and he's hitting things that we bring up that people have long forgotten. For instance, Cannibal Holocaust. Nobody thinks about that movie anymore, and why it is a mark on the timeline of horror history. And that's what the show's called, History of Horror. So anyway, I enjoy it. I highly recommend it. And I can't wait till season 3 is on Shudder because it's already aired. It airs like in October on AMC and then eventually gets over to Shudder.
Okay. All right. Now, is Shudder owned by AMC? Is it one of their
Yes.
affiliates? Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of cool stuff on there. So and I've said it before. I think I said it 2 years ago when you first told me about Shudder. Why is there not a sci-fi streaming service? That's science fiction. That's not the Sci-Fi Network, which was never good.
You mean channel, the Sci-Fi Channel, SYFY?
Yeah. Yeah, SYFY. They changed their logo. But a sci-fi service like Shudder would be awesome, and we would both be on them all the time, I'm sure, sort of thing. Because there's obviously a niche out there for sci-fi as well as horror. I think it's sometimes harder to differentiate sometimes, since there seems to be a lot of crossover now with it, or with it trying to be so classic. Redoing Dune, we're redoing Babylon 5, we're redoing, okay, there's new stuff out there. There's plenty of sci-fi novelists out there.
If you have any doubts, just go to the homepage of Netflix and the top 10. There's always a sci-fi and horror in the top 10, sometimes 2.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Agreed. So this is a sci-fi week too. So we're covering sci-fi this week, which is good. Although I will caveat at the beginning, we are not covering good sci-fi, but we are covering sci-fi. Hence my lovely cosmic background. And for those
mine
of
looks
you
like
who
a
are
cell, because at one point she's in a cell.
She is in Taipei. Yes. We are covering a little film that came out in 2014, written and directed by the same individual, Mr. Luc Besson. It's called Lucy. If you have not seen this movie, go watch it now before you jump into listening to us or watching us, because we will spoil it. We do not do spoiler-free anything. We give our opinions on things, sometimes loudly, sometimes comically. What we do. The basic storyline of Lucy is you have a young girl who you don't even know. She might be an expat. She might be visiting. She might just be a girl touring, through Asia. But she is we find out, Taipei, and she is with a boyfriend who is trying to convince her to go make a delivery of a unique, weird briefcase, a metal briefcase. And we all know much more than she does what the guy wants and what's going on or whatever. Through a series of unfortunate events, she ends up becoming a drug mule for an evil, vicious Korean.
It's almost like a mafia type.
Mafioso. She and three other individuals are used as human mules. So essentially, they're cut open. A bag of a purplish bluish powder is put in them, and they are sent to various countries to help distribute these drugs, not of their own volition, by the way.
Speaking
They've
of
essentially
body horror, there's quite
Yeah.
a crossover there, because that really freaked me out a little bit.
Did it really? In the process, she ends up being kicked in the stomach, which ruptures one of the bags, which we hear about all the time from drug mules. And unfortunately, this powder goes into her, which starts her elevation from using just 10% of her brain to over 100%. Action, murder, and craziness ensues, with a cosmic sort of ending from there. Had you seen this movie before?
I have never seen this movie before.
Oh, really? Okay. So I'm very curious to get your take on it.
Well, I would like to point out that of our 11 foreign films this season, this is one of them. It is a French film.
Yeah.
Directed by Mr. Besson. Second movie we've covered by him. We covered The Fifth Element.
Yes.
And as far as my reaction, well, I love Scarlett Johansson and Morgan Freeman, and I really kind of enjoyed this movie. I went on it for the ride.
I think you have to. I really think you have to say, okay, I'm not going to analyze this, although I did, but most people have to just go, okay, here we go. We're just going to let this waft over me. There are tons of videos out and everything else of people like taking the science of this and just commenting on it. Like, Morgan Freeman will say, we're the only animals that have used this powder. And they'll go, no, that's not true. That is totally not true. There's only one animal on Earth that's more advanced uses more of its cerebrum than man, and that is the dolphin. No, that's not true.
No, I think whales do too, don't they?
But it's many animals do. The whole fallacy of this movie is that it's based on a total myth. That is the myth that we only use 10% of our brain. That has been debunked several times. Historically, it was given over to, people have said Einstein said that. No, he never did. People have said that other scientists have said that. No, they haven't. Actually, a big purporter of it, who was in total favor of it and agreed, it was John W. Campbell, the author who wrote Who Goes There. Mm-hmm. He believed in a type of pseudoscience called psionics, which believed in this whole thing that comes out in this movie, which is essentially, if we were able, first of all, precept that we only use 10% of our brain. If we could use more, that would explain the mysteries of the universe that we don't understand. So telekinesis, ghosts, telepathy, being able to fly, being able to change matter, teleportation, all that would be possible if we could just tap into more of our brain, kind of thing. That's been pretty much wholeheartedly debunked.
If they hadn't have used that myth, this movie would have still worked. That could have just been some super, what is it when they manufacture a drug? It's not organic. I can't remember.
Synthetic.
Synthetic. It could have been just like a super synthetic drug that gave her like superhero-like powers, and it would have worked. They just used that whole myth that you're talking about. So I guess that's why it works for me on one level.
Agreed. This is basically a superhero movie. This is, one of my biggest keys is, okay, this is the entire Marvel universe, because she has the super serum. She was just given it before, Captain America was, and it just went a little bit farther.
Right. No, totally agree. I would say Captain America is a good clue or a good key.
Yeah. But so, okay, a little bit about production. So we talked about it is pseudoscience. This is totally the brainchild of Luc Besson. He wrote it, he directed it. He had some different ideas of things he wanted to do with it that ended up changing, or he changed or didn't do or whatever. But it is, I like the direction of it. I have to say that. And I like the way he actually plotted it out, so to speak, with what he had, because I like Luc Besson. Prior to this, his big revolution was in the 90s. That's when he did all of his, Leon, The Fifth Element, two of my favorites that he's done. La Femme Nikita, not only the movie, but doing the series as well. And I found out he's written a bunch more than I ever thought. Like, he wrote all the Taken movies. He wrote La Femme Nikita, he wrote La Femme Nikita, the series. He wrote Taken, the series, when it became that, sort of cable show that was on for a while.
He wrote this.
And he's written, he's written and he's written a lot more actually than he's really directed as far as, mainstream stuff goes. But there's just, well, let's stay positive. So what did you like about it? You like the action, I assume?
I like the action. If you're going to put this in the category of it versus The Fifth Element, since we have covered both these films, I would probably choose this, because I like, even though I'm a big Bruce Willis fan, I like my sci-fi a little less humorous. And this is not a funny movie. This is a very serious movie, especially when you find out she's being used as a drug mule. I mean, that totally took me off guard. I've only seen it once, so I'm trying to remember scenes. The thing that keeps popping up in my mind is when she's turning into that weird organic looking like computer on the white background, very Stanley Kubrick with the white background and just her and the black computer.
And Matrix. Very Matrix.
Very Matrixy too. I think I had that as a key. I love ScarJo more than anything because she underplays it beautifully. It's like not a superpower to her. It's just the way she reacts. Like with very little expression. She doesn't get scared. She just sometimes waves her hand, and sometimes she doesn't even have to do that. She can just look at something. So I guess she's my favorite. And then, of course, Morgan Freeman could bring cred to reading a phone book because he's so much of a powerful actor and voice. So he brought a little bit of credibility to the science, even if it is wonky.
Oh, definitely. I think that was the coup. That was the coup of the movie, is if we can get Morgan Freeman to say it, people will believe it like it's real. Because it's not, but he says it in such a way that we go, oh yeah, sure. And I agree with you. I think Scarlett Johansson is excellent in this movie all the way through. The nuances she has to play, from the innocent, terrified girl at the beginning to really, really terrified when she figures out what they're doing to her, to the almost robotic computer, but still with some hint of compassion to her about, like the roommate, you're going to have your kidneys examined and your liver's failing and you need to have a lifestyle change and maybe eat more healthy, kind of thing. And here's a prescription. But doing it in almost a robotic way.
When she's sipping the coffee or whatever it is she's drinking with the guy, and she mentions, it's almost like she's flirting with him. And then she says she's doing it because she wants to be reminded of it.
Oh yeah. Well, no, he says, you don't need me. I can, you seem to be doing everything pretty much by yourself.
Right.
And he goes, why am I here? And she walks up to him and kisses him and says, as a reminder, and walks away. And I wish that's a moment where, okay, he's a writer. He's written all this stuff. He's obviously written good action, because that's another third plus I have for this movie. The action sequences in this are really well done. And somewhat believable, although skeptical of just the reasoning behind them. But we'll talk about that when we get into detail. But I wish he's written other stuff and obviously has a good grasp of writing and structure and everything else. But as a writer, as a script, this thing has just such terrible rhythmic problems through it and some issues with it. I mean, I don't like her setting herself up. I mean, him setting her up as almost a superhuman, and then she doesn't do superhuman things. she'll do something totally different. You know, a good example is, all right, you made like 17 guys instantly unconscious in the hallway, right? Then the next time when you have like only 6 guys, you go one by one through them and levitate them into the air, throw one guy into a wall, and put the other guy in a little force field box. Okay, why? Just knock them out again. You can do that. You have this huge long car chase. Why don't you just push the cars out of your way? You can do that. We've already seen you do that. You've thrown stuff all across the room. So he makes these logic jumps that don't work to me. That I'm going.
Something tells me that the progression of that is not logical either. Is it? I can't remember. Like she doesn't. Does she make all the guys drop before she does the floating thing?
Yes.
I can't remember. So in other words, she's not learning more or progressing more.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what I mean. Structurally, if it was I can do this now. Oh, that's kind of cool. And then I can do this step now. That's kind of, which is basically what I thought we were doing, because at the beginning, remember, Morgan Freeman says, here's what happens at 20%. Here's what happens at 40. Here's what happens at 60. And then they go, what about 100? And he goes, I have no idea. Mm-hmm. And he keeps interrupting the movie with these things. I mean, these huge percentage things going, now we're at 50%. Right, or whatever.
Stanley Kubrick also. It's like The Shining.
Right. But the progression is not happening. Her learning curve is not happening. She's immediately so powerful, and that's it's a huge key for me that you wouldn't get. But Star Trek Discovery right now is the same way. They have instant transporters. Their comm badge. They don't have tricorders anymore because they hit their comm badge and it suddenly projects up this holographic readout that they can manipulate and play with and everything else. And everything is easy technology, which hurts the storytelling and the drama. Because if you can do that, then why don't you all the time? Classic example, a few episodes ago, literally this one character kept instantly beaming to the bridge from wherever she was, on a planet, on a shuttlecraft, on the in the cafeteria or whatever, she would beam to the bridge. And yet this scene near the end, she takes the turbo lift to have a conversation with somebody. I'm going, why are you just beam there? Both of you could beam there instantly right now. Go.
That's funny. They could all just walk around in white space and project everything.
Right. So I think he advanced her too quickly.
Yeah. We used to have a similar argument, I want to say, when I watched very little of Next Generation, but I seem to remember you having a similar argument with the holodeck, because they used it a lot.
Well, I still have it
when they first
still have it.
Came
it's
on.
a bad writer's crutch. Okay. Is to make people omnipotent. Roddenberry even did it in the original series. He was fascinated with this omnipotent alien testing humans. I mean, so much so that Q, all these characters, I've still reflected it the whole time. But I mean, so I am so conflicted, because I agree with you. Watching this again, this is like my 4th time watching this, and I went, okay, I still like Scarlett in it, and I still like it. I mean, it's a good, fun ride, but it makes no sense.
Well, I think The Matrix to me is very similar. I mean, I like The Matrix a lot. It's an amusement park ride, but I don't think it's a great movie.
Oh, I think The Matrix is much better than this.
Okay.
But the structure and the science in The Matrix makes sense. I mean, what they set up, they continue.
They're loyal to their setup, I guess.
Like we said, science fiction can be anything, but it can't be everything. Mm-hmm. It can be whatever you want it to be, as long as you set it up and keep it that way. But it can't be everything. I mean, it's part of it is in the storytelling too. I like the fact that, well, let me ask you, what did you think about the whole beginning sequence where it kept cutting to the animal scenes?
I like that. I actually like that a lot, because but it was immediately set up as her being the prey, and the Korean mafia or whatever you want to call them being the predators. So
she's even wearing a cheetah jacket.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was subliminal somewhat. It was like, actually, it was a little bit too much to be subliminal, but it was like he was going for a subliminal effect. And I didn't mind it because I was like, oh, yeah, she's in danger. And he's just reinforcing it with this imagery.
So see, that's a good example. It's excuse me, it's definitely a film style, to suddenly have a jump cut to a cheetah. Mm-hmm. Or a jump cut to a baboon or whatever, or jump cut to 10%. So that's a style that he started at the beginning of it. But then it seems like an editor, like halfway through, said, hey, are we going to keep doing this? And they go, nah, let's don't do it anymore. And they never did it again. I mean, they only do it for like the first 15 minutes and then it's gone. They never use that cinema language again. Like, it would be interesting to see.
I was thinking, do you think it was to get you geared up for those percentage flashes? Because they stop when the percentage flashes start, don't they?
Sort of. He does do because she does 10%. Then they also do he says, they'll either try to survive or they'll try to reproduce. And we get the whole, Discovery Channel, all the animals making love sort of thing, mm-hmm. Cutting to cell division and all of that. But then it stops. And this time watching it, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to watch. Is it because of the lectures? Now, it does stop after he stops the lectures because he's giving that one big lecture on using what he called your cerebral capacity, which I don't even know what that means. and I've read some reviews of people going, I don't know what that means. What's cerebral capacity? But I don't know.
Everything your brain can perform?
I guess. I'm assuming that's what he means. Yeah. But
I mean, that's what the definition would be, I would think. But I mean, a lot of people think there is no limit.
Right, but they're intercutting that lecture. They're intercutting that lecture with her and her situation, and the animals. So they're going back and forth, but then they stop. And I think it would have been better if he had continued that metaphor all the way through it. So, like, she's getting ready to go into a situation, whether it's the hospital or something or whatever, and we see a similar animal kind of thing, or we see the cells evolving and mutating and changing or something else until we get to the weird 2001 trippy section when she's actually going through time sort of thing. I think if we had seen a little bit more of that progression, it would have helped the progression of the story, but also the progression of her powers kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I kind of just went away with it. See what I've got in my notes here.
Well, I've got that he refers to his own. Well, you know what? I'll get to that in a minute. But that's more of a key thing. And I actually, in my thoughts, I have love the animal predator type in imagery. We mentioned Kubrick. We've mentioned him several times. There's lots of this movie that reminds me of Stanley Kubrick. It's not as intelligent or grand as a Kubrick movie, but the visuals are there at times, I think.
Yes, he's trying to create, but Kubrick is always a very cold storyteller. We've talked about it before. It's not that he dehumanizes characters. It's that he kind of wants us to be voyeuristic and just watch what's happening to these characters. And Luc Besson doesn't. He wants us invested in these. I mean, plus the fact that Luc Besson likes badass women with guns. That's a big thing in a lot of his movies. True. But he wants us to feel what she's feeling. I love the fact that, she wakes up in the bed and doesn't know what's happened to her and reaches down and sees the bandage and all that. And you suddenly have that other urban myth of, they've taken a kidney. Kind of
harvesting or organ harvesting, excuse me.
Organ harvesting, yes. Mm-hmm. So I don't think he's as cold as Kubrick, but yes, I can see what you're saying about the film language of being boom, we're suddenly a black screen with a percentage sort of thing. Or we cut to just extreme close-ups of her eye and we see like a frog lens, and then a lizard lens, and then a snake lens, and then the blue, sort of thing. So very
or a
cosmic.
shot will be all white except for her.
Yeah. In the background, very Kubrick, very Matrix. But again, he also doesn't use the single point perspective that Kubrick always uses too. So there's that. But yeah, I could see where you could say there's a lot of Kubrick to it. What did you think of the ending of this? I mean, we build up and we build up and we build up to I want my drugs, and she wants to what? Give him a flash drive. She wants to.
I think it goes back to the conversation that they had when she says, what would you do basically if you were me? And he said, well, the instinct for most would be to share this knowledge. So she is trying to figure out a way that she can share it. And they're leading us to believe, I can't remember how, I guess because of her rapid regression, that eventually she's just going to be beyond us and we're not even going to see her anymore. And so she is working towards creating that thing to pass on to him so that we can learn from it. That's what I got from it.
Well, that's good. Like I said, I've seen it 4 times, and I don't think that's conveyed enough, in my opinion. But that was just me, I guess.
Well, it's the strongest scene maybe in the whole movie is her conversation with him, I think, because you've got her and Morgan Freeman sharing a screen, and that doesn't happen that often in this movie.
Right. Until the end when they're in the same room. But even then, basically, she's so elevated. It's like she's trying to talk to a room of monkeys, which is good and the way it should be. I just thought, well, first of all, I don't think we built enough to what her motivation was, other than she said, I will need these chemicals. And then he says, do you sure you need that many? And she goes, some of the cells will rebel, so I have to really, pump it up, give them a lot, overdose them, sort of thing. And then she kind of elevates to a higher, very Stanley Kubrick, very 2001. She elevates to a higher consciousness in some way, giving him a flash drive. It's not even a hard drive. It's a flash drive, but it has sparkly stars in it. So in case you didn't notice,
Orion's belt on it. The constellation.
Yeah, but it's actually not on it. It's actually moving. If you look at it in his hand, it's twinkling in the flash drive. And then we have one of the worst, in my opinion, cop-out things at the end when she says, I am everywhere. I was going, okay, that is so Matrix at the end. That is just so, and now Neo is born kind of thing. And I did read and research that he is working on Lucy 2 this year. So, yeah, he's working on a sequel. I don't know, but he's working on a sequel to this. So I'm assuming it couldn't be done without Scarlett, but, and she's not MCUing anymore, so she should have plenty of time on her hands. She may just be a little bit more expensive than he's used to.
Maybe.
But yeah, Lucy too. She's everywhere. One of the thoughts I had was, okay, so she elevates and becomes her, the voice in the, because that's her in the movie. So if you haven't seen that there's parts of this that reminded me of one of the keys I have is her, because
I have not seen it.
She's
That's the Joaquin Phoenix movie, right?
Yes, where he falls in love with a computer AI. Who is voiced by her.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, Scarlett's the voice. So yeah.
It's a little bit on casting if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, let's go there.
I mean, actually, I don't have a lot because most of the actors in this are foreign actors, whether they're Korean or it's weird because they were Korean mobsters, but they were in Taiwan, which I'm not sure why that choice. But anyway, maybe he knows more about the Korean mafia than we do. And I think that Morgan Freeman was a get and he didn't want to stray or anybody else for that part because he knew the credit would bring. Scarlett Johansson, apparently there were rumors that Angelina Jolie was originally cast in this part, but Luc Besson denies that and basically says that he wanted Scarlett all along. and that when she saw how strongly she reacted to playing the part, he immediately cast her because he knew she would be, I guess, the right person. However, I also have that Mila Jovovich. I still can't say that name. I couldn't say it in the Fifth Element podcast we did.
Jovovich. Yes.
Jovovich.
Mila Jovovich.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyway, she was rumored to have been cast, but declined due to pregnancy, or was rumored to be wanted. And I could see that because he had used her before, but I don't think she's as strong as Scarlett Johansson. There's no way.
No way. Nope.
So, but that's really all I have. I mean, I could go through some. I really like the guy that played Pierre. Amir Wicked is his name. I'm not sure what nationality is, but he is the police chief in Paris that she kind of pairs up with and flirts with a little bit. I thought he was really cool. He kind of reminded me a bit of like an Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, but again, as a character, he's just a cipher. He doesn't really do anything. Well, he just kind of responds to her.
How can you do anything when you're opposite 100% of someone's brain capacity?
Well, and that's the whole point. Is it might have been interesting if in that middle, near the end, halfway through section, if she had some kind of flaw, some kind of issue, other than I'm on an airplane and I'm dissolving, and so I think I'll eat more blue stuff.
That was weird.
We never got an explanation for that, but okay, fine.
Well,
but even if after that.
Well, I was going to say, we didn't get an explanation either for the guy they brought in to the desk in front of her when they had her handcuffed to the briefcase still. And they gave him like 2 crystals to snort up his nose and he goes bananas. Yet she has it leaking in her and becomes practically omnipotent with it.
Yeah, you need a lot of it. You can't just have a lot,
not a little. A little is bad. A lot is good.
I guess, as far as this goes, or it needed to be a female is one thing that I wish they have said.
That's great.
Because
I hadn't thought of that.
I kept thinking there's so many ways to rewrite this in a better way. Like what I was saying was, okay, so she wakes up, she does the airplane thing and she essentially, we don't know what happens to her because we think she's dissolving. And the guy's banging on the door going, "Miss, are you okay?" And suddenly she wakes up in a hospital. And then we find out she's in Paris. She landed. She was blacked out. They took her here. They've given her a sedative and she'll be out for the rest of the day. But she's sitting up. Anyway, it would have been interesting then to have a scene maybe when she's first bonding with this police guy of she has to eat. If she can't eat like she did after the initial thing where she attacked the guys that almost tried to rape her and everything else, and she shoots all 4 of them and then just sits down and eats their entire meal. Maybe she has to feed after she has this huge ingestion of stuff or some kind of flaw that he could help her with. Mm-hmm. What made, good example. Reese in Terminator could do anything. He can saw off a shotgun. He can make dynamite. He can make pipe bombs. He can drive cars and trucks and motorcycles. He can do everything, but he can't wrap a good bandage for himself. And she has to be the one to heal his wounds. Mm-hmm. At least she's contributing. This dude contributes literally nothing. He just kind of follows her around going, "What can I do to help?"
Well,
okay, I'd be outside.
He apprehends the other drug mules in the other countries. So he's
that was before she even gets there. That's before she even gets there. I'm talking about partnering with her.
Right.
She is, or maybe again, there's something near that end there where she has another kiss with him or something else with him that bonds her, saying, "You're the only thing that's kept me tethered, while all of this evolution is happening in my brain."
And then she intertwines their bodies and they both ascend.
Yes. Like the blob and they ascend together. Yes. Or whatever. Okay. Cast wise though, I agree with you. I think of course we've said Scarlett's great. Morgan is his usual self. He's kind of doing a rote performance, but he's still good. The police chief character is good, and so is the villain, the bad guy. Jang.
His name is Choi Min-sik, and he plays Mr. Jang.
And I've seen him in a couple of other things, I think. He's really
probably
strong.
something that we've covered. It wouldn't surprise me if he's really Korean. We've done several Korean movies. He could have been the grandfather in The Host for all we know.
Well, and I do want to think it was a very smart decision at the beginning to not have anything translated. So we feel like her. We don't understand what they are saying, and it makes it really unnerving and nerve-wracking. You know, when he comes out and he's washing the blood off his hands with the Evian water and talking, and we don't know what he's saying.
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah, it's just
the only thing
very
I
terrifying.
see he's in. I'm looking real quick. The only thing I see that he's in that I recognize is that movie Old Boy, which is another violent movie, if I recall. Okay. It's always on horror movie lists because I think it's like uber violent.
Yeah.
But I don't recognize anything else.
Interesting.
So, but he is, but I like him.
And really, that's the cast. I mean, there's a couple of one-offs. There's that pseudo roommate she had. There's the boyfriend at the beginning.
And the three drug mules.
There's the three drug mules that have like one line each. And then there's the scientists with Morgan. And then there's the one bad henchman sort of thing, which leads me, okay, wait. So another plot hole that has nothing to do with science, science fiction or whatever. You walked into a hospital and shot a guy on the operating table.
I know, I love that.
And pushed his body over and said, he's going to die anyway. Here, fix me, kind of thing. But yet, when you are up against the big villain and you've got him pinned to the chair with knives, you don't kill him.
Why don't you kill him?
You just let him live.
I did have that question. Why didn't she kill him?
Later on, you're with obviously the bad guy that has the briefcase. You don't kill him.
Yeah.
Why don't you just kill him? What do they matter to you? I mean, there was one review I saw of this that said, okay, so obviously this drug turns you into a psychopath, because how many people are killed in the car chase and in Taiwan and everything else? I was going, that's true. A lot of people probably died in the car chase, which totally unnecessary. Again, a plot point for me. Why do you have a car chase? There's no reason to have the car chase. Why would you take her to a different? Yes, that's the. Why would you take her to a different hospital than you take the other three guys?
I loved how she had no fear too. She was walking like in the streets with a gun. No fear. Mm-hmm. She didn't care. She walked into the hospital with a gun, into an operating room and up to the x-rays where she looks at the patient and then turns around and shoots the patient on the gurney and says, here, get this out of me.
Yeah, get this out of me. I need it now. But
I mean, I've never seen it before, so I guess that's another reason I liked it, is because it was definitely original, even though it may have not made a lot of sense. It was very visual and visceral.
Yes, definitely was that. He does not shy away from gun violence. He obviously likes guns and likes big guns and everything else. That was another thing just conceptually that bothered me was, okay, so you're an elevated human and you still feel the need to use a gun. But that's because everybody has to use a gun, I guess. But yeah, I mean, they make her so powerful. And then if you're that powerful, it just makes me have a bunch of questions. Like you may be super, super powerful, but those freaking laptops are not that fast. You would not be able to do what those laptops are doing. Those Windows or those processors are not that fast. At the same time, yes, and they were both fast.
I'm sorry,
you can manipulate
your computer up for landing.
And she goes, "You better wipe your nose," and she starts to bleed. So
bizarre.
She can manipulate matter. Like she can change her hair instantly in front of people. Why didn't she just fly to the freaking hospital instead of taking a car?
Why didn't she just teleport? Because she doesn't even need a plane.
No, she doesn't need a plane at all. Why is she doing that?
Because if she did, we wouldn't have a story. It would be a very fast movie. The end.
Well, that's why you intentionally storytelling you give your characters flaws,
right,
so that they have to overcome something.
Yeah.
She never has to overcome anything in this entire story, really, other than, I think I'm dissolving.
Well,
and I knew the answer to that. I eat more blue.
Beginning when she's not superhuman too.
Well, yeah, I mean, once she gets the CPH 40 or whatever it is that she gets,
the numbers, the blue, the blue numbers. Drano stuff. It looks like Drano.
Yeah. And like I said, this is my 4th time seeing this, and 3 different people say blue purple, and I go, no, there is no purple. No. It is all blue. No, there's no purple.
Drano
I don't see purple
or whatever. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then my last few comments are like, okay, so she says, I need you to protect this room because I have to focus. So the next shot, is essentially 15 or 20 Korean guys opening up an armory in the parking lot, and in the background you see all these cops drive up and run into the building, and I'm going, okay, you didn't see the guys right here across the street that have all of these assault weapons, and even if you didn't see them, you're going to set up inside as opposed to just outside the building and keep people from coming in. Made just no sense, no logic at all. It just bugged me. So there you go. Badass chicks. There we go.
Sorry, I was adjusting my monitor. I don't have any. Well, I do have one award for this film.
Okay.
I mean, it actually won or was nominated for a lot of awards, but it was all on the indie circuit or the foreign film circuit. So they're not awards we've heard of. But it was nominated for a Saturn Award. The Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films nominated it for Best Action Adventure Film. So, of 2015, because it came out in 2014. So,
right.
Other than that, we can go to keys if you're ready. And there are several. I mean, there are 2 that we have mentioned multiple times. And that is Stanley Kubrick films and The Matrix. And I think the reason is that some of the visuals, like that one I've got up now, that white room with her, reminds me of just something Kubrick would do, plus those flashes of the percentages. But this movie has a lot of guns. And I don't recall a lot of guns in science fiction movies other than Terminator or The Matrix. So The Matrix is the one this reminds me the most of.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. It would have been interesting if we had seen more of, like, when she's sitting in the car and she's seeing all of the lines going up from everybody's telecommunication. Mm-hmm. That would have been another thing to explore, at least in one scene. That might have been interesting.
That reminded me of Matrix too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that the fact that she looks at a tree and sees all the life energy in it and going into the roots and everything. System. It's like, oh, she can see Gaia, sort of thing, which is very very Matrixy. I thought. There's another movie. I have not seen this movie, but it came up a lot when I was researching this, called Limitless, and I've not seen it, but they say that it's very, very similar to this, except there's a male protagonist, not a female. I have seen a series that was on television. It was probably based on that movie. It was only like 6 episodes and got canceled. But basically, there was a drug that this guy could take, and it elevated his brain to like 80% only for 24 hours. So it was like a tripping drug, but it made him smarter. And he used it to solve crimes. He became the Sherlock Holmes of, and it has a cool thought and an idea, but every episode I watched was like, oh, this is just bad procedural, where this guy just becomes the big brain in the room, sort of thing. But both of and I believe it was called Limitless as well. So that's
it just occurred to me that The Matrix uses a drug too. And that's another.
Well, it uses a drug it is a key. Yeah, I would agree with that. Also, the change in perception needed more of this. It would have been cooler to see a little bit more of her perception.
Yeah, I agree.
Rather than just what we have. We mentioned Marvel, Captain America, the super serum. I've got that. I also have Venom and the Blob, because like the image you have behind you when she's turning into the black goo or whatever, or using it as a manipulator to take over the computers and the matter and everything else, that's very Venom, the new movies that are out, and also very much like the Blob,
The 1980s version.
Yes, not the 50s version,
right.
The 80s.
I can see that. I started to mention this earlier, and then I realized I was in the wrong section of my notes. But Luc Besson has actually got his own keys for this movie, and there are 3. They are Leon in The Professional.
Another movie by him.
Or and another one is that is him actually. Is it called Leon The Professional? I thought it was Leon. I thought it was just called The Professional. Okay, my bad.
Okay. Anyway. It's a foreign film. It was called Leon. In America, it was called The Professional.
Okay, that's why it didn't make sense to me. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that was one of his keys. Another key was Inception, which I have not seen, I don't think. If I have, I don't remember it.
Talk about trippy. You need to see Inception. Inception will mess with your world. It's a better movie than this, I think. But
I may have seen it. I get it confused with another Nolan movie.
Okay, Inception is where they essentially can go into the dreams of people.
I think I have seen that. It's the one that he did with Matthew McConaughey that I've not seen, which is like in space.
Interstellar.
Yeah, they both sound like the same title to me, and that's why I get them confused. But they're both Nolan movies, right?
Correct. Okay. Both Nolan.
All right. Well, anyway,
one is Leonardo DiCaprio, and
I think I have seen it.
And Michael Caine, and the other one is Matthew McConaughey and what's her name? I can't remember the actress's name right now, but she's big in it. Interstellar.
Okay. Well, he mentioned The Professional, Inception, and 2001: A Space Odyssey. Big surprise there.
Obviously.
So
big surprise there.
Those were his inspirations. However, other inspirations that I lifted from IMDb are, we've said The Matrix. Total Recall is another.
Lots of guns. There's lots of guns in Total Recall, and there's lots of action. So I could see that a little bit.
And then another one, and this one I kind of relate to, is that movie Jason Statham did called Crank, where
I've never seen that.
It's one hell of a ride. It's basically like Escape from New York, where he's got like 24 hours before he's just gonna blow up and detonate, and he's using all these. He's got all this speed in him, and he's moving like 90 miles an hour. It's great.
Oh, okay.
There's but I have my own key that falls kind of in the category of Crank that no one else has mentioned about this. And it's also a foreign movie, and it's not really science fiction, but it's the pacing, the music, and the way it is. I don't know. I guess it's the pacing more than anything. This movie reminded me of Run Lola Run from early 2000s. I love that movie. It's not really a science fiction movie, although it is told from 3 different perceptions of time.
Perspectives.
Yeah. And I would consider covering that movie on this podcast because it's just a favorite of mine. It was Tom Twyker. He directed and did the music for it. And this movie reminded me of it a lot.
That's a good one. That's a good key. That would be a movie for us to look into. That would be a good one. Both
of those people in Run Lola Run went on to be stars, even though they were German actors at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. That makes sense. I've got, of course, Altered States, because there's a lot. This is a very similar thing to what Jessup goes through in Altered States.
It's genetic evolution, isn't that the term? something like that.
Yeah, except we're going advanced. We're doing the ending part where he becomes the cosmos lava monster sort of vortex. And she's doing that the entire time. However, she does go back in
To
time
her
and see the
original.
original Lucy, and then also back to the Big Bang, which is very, again, Kubrick and also very altered states. And also Ken Russell. The way they use that imagery montage of weird galactic things all together, that's very Ken Russell to me too.
I can see that.
And I have something we covered just a few weeks ago in Quatermass, because they're talking about, again, genetic memory and the fact that, well, in this, the precept is time is constant, and time is the only constant, which is totally the opposite of true. Time is very fluid, and time is not constant. It's all changes based on your own perception. But in this world, time is constant. That way she can go back and forth on the timeline. That's why she can go back to Lucy and back to the Big Bang and all of that. But it's that whole genetic memory thing that we have inside us, the memories of ancestors and descendants all at the same time, kind of thing.
Keys, our own keys.
Our own keys are in there the entire time.
For sure. I have also, well, this is just a reference key, is the scene where prehistoric Lucy, as you mentioned before, reaches out to her. It's like mimicking the Michelangelo Sistine Chapel painting of God touching man.
Oh, definitely.
So that's definitely a reference key for you if any of you didn't pick up on that. They kind of hit you over the head with it.
Yeah, pretty much. It's right there in your face. And then, just the ones we mentioned, the 10% myth is definitely a key to this. The organ harvesting is mentioned. The whole the other one I've got one in my notes that I don't know because I've never seen the movie. It just came up in research. Flight of the Navigator. I've never seen that movie.
I haven't either.
But it came up in research as that was an influence on this film. So
Wasn't
I don't
that an 80s
know why.
I want to say it's Disney. It sounds like a Disney movie.
I thought it was, and by a female too. I think there was a female writer or producer, from what I remember.
I have a couple more that I don't know and have never seen. One you have, one you haven't, that I saw on IMDb as well. And it involves time traveling back to the birth of the universe. We already mentioned altered states, but they also say there's a movie called Justice League Unlimited, the Once and Future Thing Part 2, Timed Warp, which is an animated movie. Never seen it.
Nope.
However, they also mention a Star Trek Voyager episode called Death Wish. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Do you
that would
see
I
elements?
I could see elements of that. I could also see elements of the series finale of Next Generation, because it was the same way. It was that traveling back and forth through time sort of thing to our distant past and the Big Bang and all of that. So both of those I would think are, yes, I would agree, are keys.
Okay. I am typing them into my notes. And that's all I have.
That's all I have.
Other than I enjoyed it for the hot mess that it is.
Oh, and me too. Like I said, I feel very conflicted about this movie because it doesn't make logistical sense, especially even from a simple storytelling perspective. But I like the ride. I would feel the same. I feel the same way when I watch a Jason Statham or one of the other action movies. And I'm going, okay, somebody just hit him in the face with a freaking crowbar and he gets up and kicks 9 other people's asses.
That's because he's Jason Statham.
Or he is driving backwards on a one-way street for 17 miles and never gets a ding in the vehicle,
no, that's
or
Spielberg.
No.
Yeah, that's Ready Player One, I believe.
Oh, that's a game. It's just a game. But anyway, So yeah, I would recommend it. It's fun to go play and watch, and Scarlett's always awesome and everything. So there's that.
She is. So we would like to thank you for joining us today on this little sci-fi venture into the world of genetic and hereditary and whatever else you want to lump in there via Mr. Besson. If you did enjoy us, please reach out and tell your friends about us. You can reach us on your podcast platform of choice, or if you like the visual, you can always be sure to like, subscribe, rate us, ring that bell. And if you like what you hear, you can also hop on over to Patreon, where we do have bonus content as well as subscription content. David, it is always a pleasure being here with you. And always, next week we'll be back in my world of horror.
I will dust off the cobwebs. Turn off all the
lights. What is it? Oh, we have 2 episodes coming up. 2 double feature episodes that feature a very iconic figure in horror. So we're going to
please watch or listen to the next 2 episodes, because they are great double features. So we have 4 movies to watch next week. Wow. Okay.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
You too.
All right. Bye.
You can't start the car, Johnny.